Hello dear students, welcome to the lecture series of Object Oriented Programming. In this lecture we are going to see multipath inheritance. We will see how the ambiguity in hybrid inheritance is resolved by using virtual base class with syntax and example. At the end of this lecture, you will be able to resolve ambiguity in hybrid inheritance using virtual base class. Let us first understand how the ambiguity occurs in hybrid inheritance. A derived class with two base classes and these two base classes have one common base class is called as a multipath inheritance. Now, please observe the diagram over here. We have class A, class B, class C and class D with us. Class D is the child class which is inheriting the properties from two base classes, that is class B, and class C, which has the common base class, that is class A. Now, the members of class A, which is the indirect base class for class D, are inherited twice to class D. One through class B and the second through class C. So there are two copies of members of class A which are inherited by class D. So when any data or function member of class A is accessed by the object of class D, the ambiguity arises as to which data or function member would be called. So the compiler gets confused and it displays the error. This is the ambiguity in hybrid inheritance. Now let us see how to resolve this ambiguity. There are two ways to resolve or to avoid this ambiguity. The first way is use of scope resolution operator, which we have already learned, and the second is use of virtual base class. So, the duplication of inherited members can be avoided by making the common base class, that is indirect base class, or you can say the ancestor class, as a virtual base class. But when to declare this class as a virtual base class? At the time of when we declare the direct or immediate base classes, at that time this ancestor class or the grandparent, or the, you can say, the indirect base class is can be made as a virtual base class. Now let us see how it can be done with the syntax. When a class is made as a virtual base class, C++ takes necessary care to see that only one copy of that class is inherited, regardless of how many inheritance paths exist between the virtual base class and the derived class. Now, let us see the example over here. As I told you, we have class A, which is the indirect base class for class D. We have two classes, class B and class C, which are inheriting the properties from class A. So these two classes are the direct base classes for class D. Class D is the derived class which is inheriting the properties from class B and class C. Now class B and class C has the common base class as a class A. So in our case, class A is the indirect base class or the ancestor or the grandparent class. Class B and class C are the direct base classes and class D is the derived base class. Now what we have to do? We have to make sure that class D will get only one copy of the members of grandparent, that is class A. So in that case, at the time of declaration of class B and class C, we have to make class A as a virtual base class. So we have to use a keyword as a virtual. Now you know that when we inherit the properties from the base class, we have to go for some deviations. You can go for public derivation, you can go for private derivation, you can go for protected derivation. So after that public derivation, you have to write a keyword as a virtual, or before the public derivation, or it can be private, it can be protected, no issue. Okay, so before or after the derivation, you have to write a keyword as a virtual, which indicates that class A is the common base class for class B and class C, which we have declared as a virtual, so that class D will get only one copy of the members of class A. Okay, so let us see the example now. Let us consider the result of a student. Okay, here we have a student as an ancestor class. We have result as a derived class, and the immediate base classes are the test class and the sports class. Okay, so while calculating the final examination marks of a student, we have to consider the test marks also, and some additional weightage is given for the sports marks. Okay, so by combining these two of the marks, the result of that respective student will be declared. Now let us see how it will work. So this is my student base class, which is ancestor, which is indirect base class, and it has two member function as get number and put number. Okay, so this get number will help us to get the number from the user, and put number will display the roll number on the screen. Okay, and we have the base class, which is the direct or immediate base class of a derived class test, derived class result. Okay, and this test class will calculate the marks of a student. Okay, now for this test class, public is a for this test class, student is the base class. Okay, so that's the reason we are going to declare that student class as a virtual base class over here. So please observe the syntax over here, how it is written. So class as a keyword, test is the name of that respective class, followed by colon. Okay, followed by the virtual keyword, followed by derivation, followed by the name of that ancestor or name of the base class. Okay, so here I have used the virtual keyword first, and after that I have written the public, but you can make it as a reverse also. So you can write public followed by virtual. Okay, so that is also okay. So this test class has two functions as a get marks and put marks. So this test class is going to accept the marks of part 1 and part 2 from the user, and those marks will be displayed on the screen using put marks function. Now we have one more class as a sports class, which is the derived class of a ancestor, that is student class. So here also this student class is made as a virtual, so that only one copy will be given to the result class. Okay, and what this sports class is doing, this sports class is calculating not calculating getting the sports score from the user and displaying the sports score. Okay, now let us see the derived class, which is our result class. Now derived class, that is result class, is inheriting the properties of test class and sports class. Okay, and it is displaying the total score of that respective student. Okay, so how the total score will be calculated? So the marks of part 1, the marks of part 2, and the sports score. So likewise the total score will be calculated. Now put number will display the roll number of a student on the screen. Put marks will display the part 1, part 2, and sport marks, and put score will display the sports marks of that respective student. Okay, so this is our result class, which is our child class, which is inherited, which is derived from test class and the sports class, and test class and sport class is derived from the common base class, that is student class. And so we have made that student class as a virtual base class. Now let us see how the main function has been implemented over here. Here result is my derived class. I have created the object obj of the derived class. Now when I call evoke the function get number, okay, I can use the obj as an object, and this get number is the member function of the student class. Now if you observe over here, that student the get number function can be inherited two times by derived class D. Okay, but as we have by the derived class result, but as we have declared that base class as a virtual class. Okay, and at the time of declaring the immediate or the direct base classes of the class result, derived class result. Okay, so only one copy of the get number will be uh, passed to the derived class. Okay, that is our result class. Okay, then dot obj dot get marks uh, will accept the marks of a student for part 1 and part 2. Now that get marks function belongs to test class, which is inherited by the result class. The next one is get score. It is the function which belongs to sports class, which is inherited by the result class. And the display function, it is its own function, okay, which display the final result. Okay, so what was our aim? Our aim was to get a single copy of the members of the ancestor class or of the indirect base class. Okay, so this has been achieved over here through this obj.getNumber through the virtual base class. Okay, so what will be the output? The output will be like this. You have to enter the roll number, then you have to enter the marks for part 1 and part 2, and you have to enter the marks or score for the sports. Okay, and it will be displayed as it is on the screen using those member functions. Okay, so this is how we can use the virtual base class to avoid the ambiguity in hybrid inheritance. I hope you have understood this. So we'll meet in the next lecture. Thank you. Happy learning.